on, maestro! Hit it!
Our protagonist walked up the stairs, his hand on his head, wondering what's wrong with him. His head hurts so much, and all his clothes are torn and ragged. He has no wounds on his body. Where did he go? He asks himself in confusion. Trying to remember where he had been, he can't recall anything. He just feels unwilling. Today is June 30th, 2035, and our protagonist has just reached the door of his apartment. Finally happy to be home, he suddenly notices the box he lost when he moved into this apartment. He didn't expect his boss to actually help him find it. Our protagonist's name is Lu Chen, and after entering his apartment, he remarks that although there are just some worthless photos and certificates in this box, they carry a lot of memories. After placing it on the table, he opens the box and pulls out a picture. This picture seems to be of the first master of the game, Star Sea Shuttle from H County. Now that he thinks about it, it was an interesting memory because this was the starting point of his esports career. 5 years ago, at the Z Country National Esports Center, a blonde guy stood on stage, confidently saying that he is pretty happy to come to Z Country. He mentions that he also learned some Chinese. However, he was extremely let down by the competition's opening day. He tells the Z Country crowd that their gaming level makes him feel bored, craving failure in this Z Country, but in the end they couldn't defeat him. This man's name is Park Han Wang, H Country esports player, Star Sea Exploration, strongest combat power. After hearing Park's words, the crowd erupted in anger, questioning what he had to be proud of. They pointed out that without the Dragon King being hospitalized, Park wouldn't stand a chance. They continued, labeling him shameless for believing he was invincible, and reminding him of how the Dragon King defeated him 3-0 in the past. Suddenly, Park snatched the microphone from the guy next to him. Not fluent in Chinese, Park shouted in Korean, accusing the crowd of being unable to accept reality. Threatening to teach them a lesson again, he proceeded to insult them, calling them trash. Handing back the mic, Park instructed the man to translate his words. Nervous, the man conveyed Park's message, twisting it to downplay the confrontation. The crowd grew uneasy, averting their gaze. Among them, a fat boy named Du Shi-san had translated Park's insults using Google Translate. He accused the translator of lying to avoid a scene. Turning to Lu Chen, seated beside him, Du Shi-san urged him to confront Park, but Lu Chen refused, stating his dislike for mech games. Undeterred, Du Shi-san proposed a meal of hot pot as a reward for victory. Lu Chen negotiated for 2 meals, sealing the deal. With encouragement from Du Shi-san, Lu Chen stood up to face Park. As the crowd took notice, some recognized Lu Chen as a freshman from S University, while others puzzled over his identity, unfamiliar with his gaming prowess. Noticing Lu Chen, Park got angry, asking if he is overstepping his bounds. Yawning, Lu Chen picked up his headset and then put it on, saying, "Quick battle, quick decision, eat after the fight." The caster then tells everyone that Lu Chen comes from the famous S University for esports. Many leading figures in their country's esports industry are well-known alumni of S University. He says that they look forward to Lu Chen and Park bringing them a wonderful game. Suddenly, the caster says that Park did not use the A-level mech provided by the organizer's preparation library. He directly chose the S-level mech. That wasn't fair because Lu Chen can only use the A-level mech from the preparation library. The overall situation is a bit unexpected. The crowd then started cursing at Park for not using a mech from the preparation library and going with the S-level mech. They call him shameless, truly someone from H Country. The game begins and they start fighting. Park triggers a flame pillar, but Lu Chen dodges the opponent's killer move. That shocks Park, as he inwardly starts continually saying impossible. After dodging the flame pillar, he is able to counterattack in an instant. And with that, Lu Chen destroys the core of the S-level mech with just one fire knife. Park, not accepting his loss, tells Lu Chen to come again. Park, who was eliminated, enters the battlefield again with an S-class mech, and then only lasts 9 seconds as Lu Chen terminates him again. Park then says, "Come again," but once again, Park exploded into fireworks from our boy. "Come again, come again." Those were the words that Park kept repeating after every defeat. However, Lu Chen just decided to walk off because he had already defeated him 5 times already. The caster then told Lu Chen that Park thinks his skills are proficient, so he asks him if he is a veteran player. With that in mind, the caster wonders why he has never heard of Lu Chen in the mech circle. In a twisting turn of events, Lu Chen answers that today is his first time playing this game. He just turned 18 and had access to the internet cafe since 2 months ago. He only understood the gameplay after watching the game yesterday. Ha ha ha. Look at this kid's face. Bro got owned by a guy who never played that game and only saw the gameplay for just a day. That could never be me. For real. Suddenly, the crowd started cheering for our boy, congratulating him on a job well done and praising the fantastic gameplay he displayed. They continued by declaring that this day marked the ascension of the new king of the mech circle. Amidst the crowd, his friend Fatty snapped a picture of his debut in his esports career. Since then, he became an esports star, and later he heard that Park retired after returning to his country due to his defeat. After gaining fame, Lu Chen chose the popular game Spirit Pain, and his ID name became Lu Chen. He officially embarked on the journey to dominate the Z country esports circle. Suddenly, he noticed something in his box, picked it up, and explained that it was the first trophy he won in Spirit Pain. It was also the first time he fought Candle Shadow Chaos. The First War, Unparalleled Cup's first final competition scene. Candle Shadow and Lu Chen faced each other, engaging in a warrior's fight. No fancy moves, only the collision of knives and swords, blood and flashes. Compared to competitions in other professions, the warrior's competition was more blood-boiling. Suddenly, Candle Shadow Chaos used the Crimson Dragon Flame Slash, but Lu Chen easily parried it with one move, the Reverse Flow Galaxy. Now it was Lu Chen's turn. Ready himself, he unleashed the Taishan Sword Dance, an attack so powerful it inflicted numerous slashes on his opponent. While slashing, Lu Chen asked Candle Shadow Chaos how far he believed he could beat his record on combos. Suddenly, the commentator rose from his seat, excited and bewildered by Lu Chen's increasing combos, now reaching 197, already surpassing Candle Shadow Chaos's highest record of 196 combos. However, our boy persisted. The limit had not been reached yet. After numerous slashes, Candle Shadow Chaos now struggled to resist Lu Chen's relentless combos. In the end, Lu Chen finished with an incredible 250 combos, setting a new historical record. This night, their champion was born. This seems to be the only time he officially fought with Candle Shadow Chaos. Who knew that the organizer actually engraved his combo count on the trophy as well? With various records and first rankings, he successfully entered the Hall of Fame as the youngest member in its history. Lu Chen was on the front page headline of every gaming media outlet every single day. Unfortunately, life can be unpredictable. Lu Chen was involved in a car accident that damaged his brain nerves, causing a severe delay of 3 seconds in his reaction time when his nerves were highly concentrated. While this delay didn't significantly affect his normal life, it had a profound impact on his performance in high-intensity mental activities, including competitive gaming. As a result, his ranking dropped significantly, falling beyond the 100th rank. This decline led opportunistic individuals to berate him, look down on him, and mock him without restraint. However, Lu Chen's reputation as the former #1 player still held some power. With just a glare, he could make these trash talkers cower in fear. Recognizing that those who trash talked were mostly cowards, he decided to distance himself from them and move on. A few days later, Lu Chen returned to his guild, the Ancient Dream Soul Guild. To his surprise, the guild was in disarray, as if it had been raided. He quickly sought out his guildmaster to inquire about what had happened. To his dismay, the guildmaster explained that this chaos had been caused by a few members who were afraid of being hunted down. They had created a scene before leaving, wreaking havoc in the guild and taking everything with them. What's more, their actions had been even more ruthless than those of other guilds. With this, Lu Chen felt sorry and suggested quitting the guild, believing that if he left, his enemies would leave the Ancient Sword Guild alone. However, to his surprise, the guild leader wouldn't allow him to do so. She reminded him that he was one of the founders of the guild and couldn't be left alone in this fight. She was aware of opportunistic individuals who wouldn't hesitate to use him as a stepping stone. Moreover, they had received a challenge invitation from Candle Shadow Chaos on behalf of his guild. But due to his current circumstances, Lu Chen couldn't defeat him. So, he asked the guild leader to reject the invitation. But even before she could respond, a system notification popped up indicating that Shadow's guild had withdrawn their challenge request. They even issued a public apology, a deliberate move to provoke Lu Chen by demonstrating to everyone that challenging him would only diminish Shadow's reputation. This action disrespected Lucian's legacy once more, and the letter containing this apology had been reposted over 1 million times in the game, ensuring that everyone knew how they had violated Lucian with a single gesture. So Lucian fell silent, unable to believe the audacity of these individuals who had revealed their true colors as soon as he fell off. However, he couldn't let his guildmaster worry about him, so he did his best to conceal his emotions and continued on his way. After the incident with the apology letter, the Candle Dragon Guild led a series of joint attacks, ultimately leading to the downfall of Lucian's guild, the Ancient Sword Dream Soul. This also marked the end of Lucian's esports career. In the end, he and his guildmates burned 7 dragon grasslands before their guild closed down. They subsequently deleted their accounts and quit the game as a way of expressing their dissatisfaction with the situation. However, thinking about the past would only make him feel even more miserable than he currently did. There was still an hour left before the next day arrived, so he decided to use his computer as a way to take his mind off things before going to bed. Once the computer was completely booted up, he went straight to the forum headline. To his surprise, there were still 100,000 comments cursing him for what he had done to the 7 dragon grasslands, even though they had quit the game long ago. This only added to his frustration, since he wouldn't have resorted to such actions if it weren't for them. Douchebags chasing him relentlessly, thinking they were the elite but not realizing they were just bullying others. This really tired him out mentally. He was so done with such a toxic community. Now he regrets browsing the forum again, so he decides to get some rest instead of reading more about it. However, as he is about to stand up, he notices a box under his desk. Upon closer inspection, it turns out to be the Heaven's Order gaming helmet, a reward sent by the Yueheng group for getting into the Hall of Fame, which he had forgotten about amidst all the chaos. But now that things had settled down, it seemed like the perfect time to take a look. After all, Heaven's Order was promoted as a masterpiece beyond Spirit Pain. Not long after Heaven's Order had completely booted up, leaving a good impression on Lucian, as it was indeed a level above Spirit Pain, with superior FX and graphics. However, the slogan gave him pause as it hinted at another intense battle, something he wasn't sure he was ready for, especially since he had lost his abilities. But even before he could decide what to do next, he received a voice call from Shisan, who was worried sick because he hadn't been able to contact Lucian for a whole day, to which Lucian quickly apologized and explained that he didn't know what had happened either. With this, Shisan assumed Lucian had been passed out drunk, but now that he knew Lucian was fine, he let it be and didn't ask further. Now that was out of the way, Shisan informed Lucian about the news that Spirit Pain had recently closed down and suggested they make a comeback in a new game called Heaven's Order. But to Shisan's surprise, Lucian had given up on the dream of returning as a professional gamer, as he asked Shisan to go on without him. This in turn angered Shisan deeply, as he couldn't believe that his friend Lucian, who had once defeated Parcom, long triumphed over Chaos, and became the youngest member of the Hall of Fame, would give up so easily. And after knowing him for years, he knew all too well that with Lu Chen's attitude, he isn't just going to swallow such a humiliation from what the Candle Dragon Guild had done to him. Shisan was right. Lucian doesn't want it to be like that. But the way things are now, he can never be the same Lucian that he knew. With this, Shisan could only grit his teeth, as he couldn't face the fact that his friend Lucian had lost the will to play again. So, he ended the call in disappointment. Now that Lucian was all alone, he found himself reminiscing about the past once more. He remembered the thrill of the battles he had won and the humiliations he had endured from those who tried to push him over the edge. But to have seen the peak, is he willing to fold so easily? And so, he puts on his VR set to enter the world of Heaven's Order. Surprisingly, entering the game was unlike any of the previous ones he had played. It felt as though he was traveling through a sea of data. Soon after, he found himself in the Temple of Guidance. It stretched high, making him feel like an ant in comparison. As he walked through the grand halls, Lucian was amazed by how realistic everything felt. The touch and texture of the stone pillars were incredibly lifelike, making it clear that Heaven's Order was truly a masterpiece beyond Spirit Pain. But his thoughts were interrupted when someone called out his name. So he turned around only to see a system sprite welcoming him to the game. And since he is a Hall of Famer in his Z country region, the sprite asked him if he wants to continue with his previous ID, which would come with certain privileges. However, Lucian couldn't help but see his old ID as the biggest joke in the Hall of Fame. So he made the decision to change it, symbolizing a fresh start. He is no longer a Hall of Fame member, Lu Chen, but the player named Broken Spear, Sunking Sand, which confused the system sprite. While Lucien could only laugh as he deemed it to be a fitting name for him, since it refers to a disastrous defeat, just like him, a remnant of the ancient sword dream soul. With his new name settled, he asked the system sprite to begin the profession selection process, which she immediately did, materializing 10 professions all at once in front of him, including the agile knight with a mount, the balanced warrior, and the single-target burst damage-dealing archer. But with so many to choose from, and only one he could receive, Lucien found himself unable to make a decision, and so he was considering choosing the warrior class he had previously mastered to be on the safer side. However, before he could make his choice, a system interface appeared, informing him that the helmet needed to draw blood samples for body detection. This surprised him, but the helmet proceeded with the blood sampling without requiring any further confirmation. And as soon as the blood sampling had been completed, an error message popped up, indicating a system malfunction. It informed him that, according to the detection, his heart rate was 30% lower than the normal human standard, his temperature was 70% lower, blood activity was down by 40%, and vital signs were reduced by 50%. However, his brainwave response exceeded the normal standard by 120%. With such unexpected results, he started to assume that his VIP-level helmet might be a knockoff, and panic began to set in. He could only shout in frustration, "Don't fuck with me!" Luckily for him, the system sprite noticed his confusion and explained that there was no need to worry since the system just recognizes physique to be special, and so it can unlock a hidden profession that suits him well. This intrigued him, as the system made such a big fuss about it, so he didn't hesitate to approve to unlock it. To his amazement, the system revealed the Death Knight class, the most potent warrior in Hell, a descendant of the Azura clan, the master of the power of the dead, and the ruler of all nocturnal spirits. The class looked incredibly impressive, and since it was a warrior class, it seemed like the perfect fit for him. So, without hesitation, he chose to become a Death Knight. Not long after, he arrived at the Chaos Ridge Novice Village, where he emerged out of the ground, which confused him as to why his starting point was below the ground. But he got a closer look at himself. Confusion overwhelmed him as he realized he had become a skeleton. This was unexpected, as he had imagined himself as a white-haired, edgy-looking Death Knight with a beautiful face. It was a far cry from the original picture he had in mind. So the system explained to him that being a skeleton was natural, as this was the apprentice form of a Death Knight. While it didn't match his initial expectations, he decided to accept it. However, he couldn't help but feel a sense of emptiness, lacking flesh and blood as he used to have. Speaking of flesh, he also noticed he doesn't have a PP, which disappointed him quite so. And being virtually horny isn't an option as well. But his thoughts were interrupted by the sudden appearance of an entity emerging from the shadows, calling out to him. Nervously, he asks who it was, to which the mysterious man angrily introduced himself as the chief of Chaos Corp's Rich, the undead mage Nylon. He is the one who encourages novices to start their journey to rule the night spirits, and the one who is responsible for giving them noobs their starting equipment. Lu Chen received a broken iron sword and a ripped shirt as his starting equipment. While it wasn't much, he didn't complain and equipped them, ready to begin his journey as a Death Knight. And with his equipment on, he's sure that his attributes must have skyrocketed, and so he checks out his character panel to confirm. But to his disappointment, he found that his attributes were still quite low, even for a newbie. Unexpectedly, his thoughts were interrupted yet again by Nylon, who suddenly appeared behind him, asking if he wants to be stronger. If so, he can give him some tips and tricks, which Lu Chen was okay with it. But he made it clear that he wouldn't be selling himself for just a tip, which Nylon understood. So, he excitedly asks Lucien to come and accept the task, and he doesn't have to sell his meat to him anyway. With this, Lucien received the quest that required him to kill 20 rabbits and collect 5 coarse leg hairs from them. He needed to submit these items to Nylon in exchange for a reward. The task seemed suitable for his current attribute level, so he wasted no time and headed to the Carrick grassland to begin hunting for those rabbits. Seeing the innocent rabbits enjoy their food, Lucien saw an opportunity for an easy kill, so he didn't hesitate to take advantage of the situation, which made him delighted at how simple it seemed. However, the rabbits weren't going to let a skeleton beat them without a fight, so they charged at him with determination. However, Lu Chen was a pro for a reason, so he excitedly welcomed their advances. He even calculated their trajectory and accounted for his 3-second movement delay, preparing to strike when the right moment came. As soon as he spotted the opportunity, he swung his sword confidently to make the kill. However, his attempt ended in another failure as he completely missed his target. This situation led him to believe that these rabbits possessed an incredible speed skill, since he had even attacked 3 seconds in advance to compensate for his delay. But now that it failed, he just ate the bunny's attack, which he can't accept. So he made another attempt, slashing his sword toward the bunny, only to miss once more. And the bunny even seemed to taunt him by mounting on his sword, suggesting that his skills were trash. However, Lucien, being a pro player with a considerable ego, couldn't allow such disrespect, and so he made yet another attempt while trying to adjust his reaction time delay. But his attack still couldn't connect, and so the rabbit confidently violated him on all angles. Despite this, he observed that the rabbit's attack speed wasn't as fast as he initially thought, so he concluded that his reaction time has completely improved, which can only mean one thing, that he, the #1 swordsman. Lucien finally returned. However, his excitement got the best of him, leading to an embarrassing demise at the hands of a group of rabbits. This was a humiliating situation for a professional player, and he swore to himself that no one could ever find out about this, even after his death. And now that he was out of battle, he had some time to contemplate how his delay had decreased to 0.9 seconds, which was quite perplexing. And his head feels a bit fuzzy trying to find an answer, and he always feels like he forgot something. Still, he tries to think carefully in hopes to remember something. With his efforts, he managed to recall bits and pieces from his memory. Fragments included memories of a sports car, a bloody baseball bat, his starting location in the game he was in now, and even Second Master Guan Yu, which confused him as he wonders what the hell does Guan Yu have to do with anything. Nonetheless, he concentrated harder and another recollection surfaced. The doctor had once informed him that his nerves had a chance of self-repairing. Considering this, he theorized that his improved reaction time might be a result of this self-repair process. To confirm his assumptions, he decided that he should make time to visit the hospital for a checkup. But for now, he had some rabbit's cheeks to clap. And since this wasn't his first encounter with these creatures, the system decided to lend a helping hand by informing him that targeting the weak point on the bigger rabbit's neck could yield a 50% damage bonus. With this, he said his greetings first and then obliterated them with such amazing speed, confirming that his reaction time had indeed decreased to 0.9 seconds. This realization filled him with excitement, as it hinted that his delay time might eventually disappear altogether in the future. So he had a grin on his face as he looked for more prey. But to his surprise, things wouldn't just go smoothly for him as a projectile was hurled toward him. And that projectile turned out to be a player, and it seems like the player was beaten so badly that he was unconscious in a VR game, and this could only mean that it was done by a powerful foe. Still, he got a huge improvement. So he confidently challenged, even if that said enemy is a level 10 king rabbit on steroids. As the rabbit finished devouring its artificially injected protein-filled carrots, it once again used a player as a projectile, aiming it toward Lucien. With a quick reaction, Lucien used the other player as a shield, instantly killing them both. With this, he was now alone with the boss. Since this is the first time he will be facing a boss after reducing his delay, he was more than thrilled to fight it, salute and ready to sword. But to his surprise, this particular rabbit was straight up born from the streets as it equipped its spiked brass knuckles to give the most brutal fade. Still, this could only mean that this rabbit is a close-range, fast-attack type monster, and the best way to deal with such an opponent is to be still in wait, and when the opponent attacks, dodge quickly and find its flaw. However, the rabbit proved to be faster than he expected, and so he barely dodged it, receiving a damage of 25 GP just by a graze on his side. But due to his undying nature, he can quickly repair the damaged bones and keep the skeletal form intact. However, his HP wouldn't recover with it, which means it is mostly useless in his current circumstance. Still, it will be more useless to be bothered by it and just stand still. So he composed himself to retaliate with everything he got, landing a critical hit. However, it only managed to reduce 8 points of life from the rabbit. So, it seems like even its defense is abnormal. So he was left with no choice but to back down, which he didn't think twice to follow him. However, this was according to his plan, as he dodged its attack and aimed for its neck to gain additional damage. To his surprise, there was an armor hidden under its fur, so his attack didn't do anything. While the rabbit had displayed its ridiculous strength, cutting the tree in half like it was paper, with this, Luchin was more than sure that if he is hit by that punch directly, his bones will also be crushed in half, and the weak points of this boss are all protected, so defeating it is near impossible. But before Luchin could devise another plan, he noticed that the rabbit is quite angry. To his surprise, it suddenly went on a hover tree and pulled it out like it was nothing, only to use it as a projectile. Still, it was just a tree. So, Luchin just cut it into pieces, unexpectedly. The rabbit had planted all along, as it tactically used this to launch a sneak attack. However, even though the rabbit calculated the risks, but man, it was bad at math, so a stray splendor had found itself toward the rabbit's eyes, damaging the rabbit by 20 points. With this, Luchin realizes that it's its real weakness all along. But since he was still inside the rabbit's range of attack, he readied his body for the impact. Following the direction of its fist, he intentionally dislocated his jaw to lessen the damage, which was a success as he just received the 15 points of damage. But the rabbit's combo wasn't on, as it landed another attack on Luchin's ribs, completely pulverizing it and decreasing his health by 40 points. And the rabbit then doubles down with another, but since Luchin knew about it, he only received 15 points of damage, just like before. However, he was now inside a tree while only having 5 points of health left. And the rabbit really wanted to catch some bodies today, so it went for the kill. Unfortunately for it, this is what Luchin wanted, as the rabbit's hand tangled in a vine inside the tree, while Luchin, on the other hand, had completely evaded its attack. And before it could destroy the whole tree, Luchin didn't skip a beat to penetrate its eyes with his long rusty blade, inflicting a critical damage of 100 points, leaving it with only 172 points of health. In turn, the rabbit fell into a rage, increasing its attack and speed by 50%, while decreasing its defenses by 50%. But since it is now blind, its rage buff backfired, as the rabbit couldn't even land the hit, while Luchin's attack had more impact to the rabbit than even before. And so, defeating the rabbit was more than a guarantee. After that, the system congratulated him for defeating the king of the backyard rabbits and gave him his reward, leveling him up to level 4. And he also gained some loot from the boss, such as a glowing chest plate giving him 9 points in defense and 20 health, and a big magic stone that can be traded with merchants for a certain amount of gold coins. With such amazing loot, he didn't hesitate to equip it, enhancing his drip at the same time. And since he leveled up, he has received 10 free points, which he can freely distribute to whatever attribute he wants. And since his HP was sufficiently covered by his equipment and he didn't possess any skills requiring mana yet, and he could compensate for agility with his reaction speed, he decided to allocate all the points to strength, which significantly enhanced his maximum attack from 6 to 16, indicating that the undead swordsman class had excellent strength growth. With this, he continued his crusade in high spirit. A few moments later, he came back with the quest item and gave it to the mysterious old guy, completing the quest, giving him 10 copper coins, 1 reputation value, and 150 experience points, leveling him up to 5 and a bonus 5 free points, which made him more than excited to get another quest from Nylon. So, he asks the Gramps for more, and seeing how optimistic he was, Nylon gave him an F-level medium quest requiring him to go to the Morning Light Forest, kill 100 green mantises, and collect 10 green mantis blades. And 100 is still quite half the amount for his level, so he needs to find a merchant first to buy some red medicine in order to be ready for a long battle. To his surprise, he doesn't have to search that long, as Nylon revealed to be more versatile than he looks, as he is in the merchant business as well. So now, they get right to the business and appraise the magic stone he got. And looking at it carefully, Nylon discerned it to be worth 1540 copper coins, which ultimately satisfied Luchin, as he also thinks this magic stone deserved that kind of amount of coins. So, it seems like Nylon is an honest working man, and so Luchin excitedly continued his business with him, asking to buy some red medicine, which can restore 80 points of life per bottle, but it also costs 50 copper coins. Still, he needs this, so he bought 20 bottles of it. But to his dismay, Nylon is so honest of a businessman that he doesn't give discounts even when he buys in bulk. So, he was in tears as he held his medicine tightly. In the morning light of the forest, Lu Chen arrived and was confronted by a warning sign from the Mad Dragon. It cautioned against trespassing for idlers. However, he wondered what the Mad Dragon was, or if it was a guild or something else entirely. He pondered the meaning of trespassing for idlers, but since he wasn't even human, he didn't care about it. Suddenly, he spotted 2 people running. He wondered who they were. He wasn't in any danger here, but these two were running for their lives, being chased by someone or something.
As they sprinted towards him, the man leading the charge mistook Lu Chen for a night spirit, a sign of trouble. They were also pursued by a member of the Mad Dragon Guild. Unluckily, the one at the rear asked the leader what to do. Without hesitation, he suggested they fight, believing they could handle Lu Chen, a level 5 night spirit, if they teamed up. However, their plans were disrupted when the elder brother was struck by an arrow from behind. Another arrow hurtled towards the younger brother, but Lu Chen intercepted it, saving him. Grateful, the younger brother checked on his elder sibling, who assured him he would survive. Urging them to flee, Lu Chen then noticed a barrage of arrows aimed at him. Despite their speed, their trajectory was predictable, making them easy for him to evade with his current reaction speed. The archer behind the assault was Xiaohua Rong, a level 7 member of the Mad Dragon Guild. Long astonished that Lu Chen dodged all his arrows, refused to let a mere skeleton masquerade as a hero any longer. Determined, he unleashed his ultimate attack, Clan Windburst. Yet Lu Chen effortlessly countered it, deeming it weak, leaving Rong stunned that his attack was thwarted. As he prepared to retaliate once more, Lu Chen suddenly appeared behind him, his speed leaving Rong choked with surprise, wondering how Lu Chen managed to sneak up on him. In a menacing manner, Lu Chen leaped into the air from behind and launched himself to eliminate the little archer, landing a critical hit that dealt 135 damage. Suddenly, a sound reverberated through the forest, loud enough to scatter the birds. Lu Chen pondered its source, realizing players couldn't create such a disturbance during battles. Could it be that the Mad Dragon Guild cleared the area to surround the boss? He mused. Nonetheless, he remained, the fish that slipped through the net, ready to claim their kill. Meanwhile, deep in the morning light forest, battles raged on. The level 15 Green Mantis King was currently 600 damage down, yet despite its weakened state, it proved challenging for the players to defeat. A man standing atop a tree informed the players that they had already worn down half of the boss's HP. He also announced that each fallen player would receive 300 yuan in compensation, with an additional 500 yuan for those who lost levels due to death. This served as their encouragement to persevere, knowing they would still be rewarded even in death. This white-haired individual, named Dragon Rain Supreme, was a level 9 knight. Unbeknownst to him, Lu Chen was nearby, utterly flabbergasted by the mention of 12,000 drops of blood and 60,000 yuan. He wondered if the knight was crazy to spend so much money to kill an F-level boss. Nevertheless, the knight's words ignited a spark in the players' morale as they resumed their attack on the monster, now dealing significant damage. Lu Chen found the damage numbers terrifying. This boss seemed much stronger than the Big Ear Rabbit King, so he wondered if the remaining members of the Mad Dragon Guild could hold on until the end. The knight continued, urging his allies to persevere, maintain coordination, and focus on positioning. He emphasized the importance of drawing the boss's aggro, exploiting its attacks, and concentrating on offense. Additionally, he advised using the monster's skill cooldown times, striking once and then retreating promptly. Lu Chen, however, questioned the efficacy of such battlefield commands, considering them overly optimistic. He feared that such reckless attacks would result in heavy casualties for their own side. He speculated whether the knight intended to sacrifice others' lives to slowly wear down the boss. With death compensation set at 300 yuan per person and an additional 500 yuan for level loss, the Mad Dragon Guild, with 50 members present, faced a potential loss of 40,000 yuan for each death or level reduction. Was this knight really willing to spend 100,000 yuan for an F-level boss's first kill? Lu Chen found the idea unbelievable. Meanwhile, the players managed to inflict significant damage on the monster, reducing its health to 416. Undeterred, they continued their relentless assault. The archers were instructed to disregard those in close proximity to the monster and focus solely on shooting their arrows. Following orders, the archers successfully depleted the monster's HP to 60. The knight was overjoyed by the archer squad's great job. He tells them that when the boss has only a sliver of HP left, they should stop attacking and let him finish it off. Nearby, Lu Chen inwardly notes how this kid is almost level 10. It turns out the knight monopolized 50% of the boss's final experience. Suddenly something unexpected happens. The boss enters a berserk state, growing 6 blade arms, increasing its attack power by 100%, defense by 50%, and speed by 100%. Although Lu Chen knows the dangers of the situation, the other players do not realize what they are getting themselves into. They are determined to kill it and hopefully receive the money that the knight promised. Their efforts are commendable as they continue to deal damage to it, leaving it with 18 GP. The knight urges them to keep going and not stop, happy that the monster is almost dead. He tells them to use their lives to create an opportunity for him, and then the boss's HP drops to 3, signaling it's time to eliminate it. As the knight lunges his spear towards it to finish it off, Lu Chen abruptly interferes and blocks his attack. Now, face to face, the knight asks him who he is, but Lu Chen simply answers that he is an ordinary passerby who happened to be here and is seeking justice for those players who were violently driven away by the knight. The knight then remarks that Lu Chen sounds righteous, but he only showed up now, knowing that Lu Chen's purpose is to snatch the boss's first kill. However, Lu Chen, looking as wise as ever, responds that he is only here to purify the game environment, while inwardly noting that he will also collect some boss as compensation. Suddenly, both the boss and the knight attack Lu Chen simultaneously, but Lu Chen easily dodges the knight's attack and grabs the boss's attack while simultaneously counterattacking, then stabs the knight, dealing a critical hit. Lu Chen then advises the knight to practice his skills more and tells him that money is not the way to go. Knowing that the knight will send people to block him after he revives, Lu Chen realizes he needs to hurry. Now, face to face with it, the boss leaps towards him, but Lu Chen simply lifts his sword upwards and kills it. With the boss's health at 0, Lu Chen receives a notification congratulating him for getting the first kill of the Green Mantis King. Ready to earn rewards and experience points after his kill, Lu Chen is suddenly confused as he receives a warning notification stating that his life index is below the minimum limit. He will be forced offline, and the system will automatically save the experience and equipment he obtained after killing the boss. Back to real life, he takes off his helmet, wondering why he was suddenly forced offline after killing the boss. What does the warning mean? He thought. Suddenly someone starts knocking on his door, and he wonders who it is since it's the middle of the night. After he opens it, he sees that it's his friend Shisan and asks him why he's here. Shisan answers that he is worried about him since he didn't reply to his messages or answer his calls, which is why he rushed here. But suddenly, after Shisan lifts his head to face Lu Chen, his expression shifts to terror as he screams and calls Lu Chen a zombie. Lu Chen's face looked distorted, but he wasn't aware of it. In confusion, he asked Shisan what he meant by zombie. When Shisan showed him his reflection on his phone, Lu Chen was utterly taken aback by the spots on his face. Shisan explained that these were corpse fog spots, typically found only on corpses, and they were expanding and changing visibly. However, Lu Chen dismissed it, attributing it to a potential skin allergy, especially given the late hour. Yet Shisan insisted, offering to take him to his father's hospital for confirmation, citing his family's forensic data. Suddenly, Lu Chen's head started hurting intensely, causing Shisan to worry and urge him to hang in there as they rushed to the hospital. In the hospital's emergency room, Shisan's father, a medical doctor, examined Lu Chen and diagnosed him with corpse spots. He suggested starting with a blood test and then arranging a PET CT scan. At the hematology laboratory, Lu Chen anxiously asked about the blood test results. The doctor explained that the conclusion wasn't straightforward, as this disease had never been seen before. He clarified that there was a giant virus in Lu Chen's blood that defied biological logic. When Lu Chen speculated if it could be the zombie virus, the doctor reassured him it wasn't that extreme. However, he noted the peculiar aspect. The virus didn't attack healthy cells, but rather repaired damaged ones. Yet due to the abundance of damaged cells, it slowed down the blood circulation significantly. The discoloration of the skin is indeed caused by the cessation of blood circulation. Lu Chen's current condition is due to sluggish blood flow, resulting in some blood pooling on the skin's surface, with his circulation gradually slowing down. If the blood flow ceases entirely, it could prove fatal for him. Lu Chen was startled by this revelation, but the doctor reassured him not to lose hope, emphasizing that with today's advanced technology, there must be a solution to his condition. Now that the PET CT is ready, they should investigate if this virus has any other effects on his body. Lu Chen expressed his gratitude, addressing the doctor as uncle, but the doctor brushed off the formality and inquired if Lu Chen had experienced any unusual symptoms lately. After a moment of contemplation, Lu Chen replied, "Nothing." The doctor pressed further, asking if he was certain, but Lu Chen insisted there was nothing to report. In the CT room, Lu Chen positioned himself on the bed for the scan. Shisan asked his father if he suspected that Lu Chen was concealing something, to which the doctor responded that he merely wanted to confirm, as Lu Chen might not recall certain events due to a protective mechanism in the brain. Shisan then queried if this meant Lu Chen had post-traumatic stress disorder, causing him to repress memories. Confirming Shisan's insight, the doctor elaborated that judging from the rate of Lu Chen's blood circulation decline, he likely suffered a severe trauma in the past, possibly even experiencing clinical death. With the situation looking grim, they needed to notify his family promptly. Meanwhile, during the scan, Lu Chen experienced a sensation of warmth. As Shisan entered the CT room to check on Lu Chen's condition, the doctor informed him that he would retrieve the film and suggested Shisan take Lu Chen to the MRI room. However, a sudden loud scream pierced the hospital's quietude, prompting the doctor to rush to investigate. With a beaming expression, Shisan beckoned his father to observe Lu Chen. The doctor was astounded to find that the spots on Lu Chen's body had vanished, leaving him bewildered at the miraculous transformation. Inquiring about his sensations, Lu Chen described feeling a warm current during the CT scan, but now experienced no discomfort at all. The doctor, taken aback, examined Lu Chen's face, hands, and pupils, finding everything normal. The disappearance of the corpse-like spots due to X-ray irradiation left him incredulous. Urging for blood-drawing equipment, he initially suggested heading to the laboratory, but Lu Chen assured him to remain calm. However, 3 hours later, Lu Chen's smile waned as he sensed Shisan's father harboring intentions of dissecting him for research. Shisan too was surprised by his father's decision to draw 88 cc of blood for experiments. Yet, the efficacy of X-rays in inhibiting the virus was now confirmed, and the pursuit of the most suitable wavelength for targeted irradiation offered hope for Lu Chen's recovery. After offering him water, Shisan advised Lu Chen to rest, as it was 6 o'clock in the morning, promising to bring breakfast later. Grateful, Lu Chen pondered over the doctor's diagnosis of a severe blow, wondering why he had no recollection of it. Suddenly, Shisan returned, informing Lu Chen of a beautiful girl with a sports car engaging in an argument with the security guard at the community gate. He continued, mentioning that the girl had a bandage around her head, giving the impression she was in a rush, possibly to meet a lover. He invited Lu Chen to join him downstairs to witness the commotion. However, the description of the girl with the bandage, beauty, and sports car struck a chord with Lu Chen, prompting him to ask Shisan if he had taken a picture of her. Being a simp, Shisan indeed had a picture and eagerly showed it to Lu Chen. He remarked on her beauty but noted the security guard's skepticism. However, Lu Chen realized who the person was. She was his boss, and suddenly memories flooded back. His expression contorted as he recollected the night after his first date with his boss. The realization of his death that night overwhelmed him as those haunting thoughts flooded his mind. Shisan was concerned, asking Lu Chen what was wrong with him. Lu Chen replied that the woman was the boss of the ancient sword guild, his boss. Suddenly, a loud knock echoed through the room from the boss. Confused, Shisan questioned Lu Chen about his actions the previous night, but he brushed it off, suggesting that since he and the boss knew each other, he would open the door and they could speak face to face. However, Lu Chen abruptly shouted at him to wait and not open the door. As Shisan turned to look at him, Lu Chen informed him that he had something to confess. Despite the boss's persistent knocking, Shisan told her he was coming and to stop knocking. Upon opening the door, she pushed him aside and entered the room, scanning for Lu Chen. Shisan asked if she needed something, to which she inquired about Lu Chen's whereabouts, confident she had heard his voice. Shisan claimed ignorance, stating she must have come to the wrong place. Unfazed, she insisted it was impossible because she knew Lu Chen had to be there. As she continued searching, Shisan warned her she was trespassing on private property, but she paid no heed, continuing to call out for Lu Chen as she traversed the rooms. Eventually, she opened the room where Lu Chen was hiding. Inside the closet, Lu Chen wondered how she had managed to get so far, considering he had instructed Shisan to divert her attention. As she prepared to open the closet, she questioned why he was avoiding her, expressing concern. Sensing her proximity, Shisan screamed that Lu Chen was already dead. Trembling, she released the closet door, insisting it was impossible. With tears in her eyes, she glanced back at Shisan, asserting that Lu Chen couldn't be dead. He must be lying. Shisan nervously confirms it's true, suggesting she could check the death report at the 4th hospital if she doesn't believe him. Despite calling him a liar, she rushes out of the room, crying Lu Chen's name. Quickly, Shisan calls his dad for help, planning to inform her of Lu Chen's death when she arrives at the hospital. Back in the room, Shisan informs Lu Chen that she's gone, but wonders if it's the right decision. Lu Chen then explains that at the hospital, he naively believed X-ray treatment would restore his body to normal. However, upon the memory lock being broken, he couldn't even confirm if he was alive. He believes it's better to deliver despair directly than to offer hope and then shatter it, lessening the pain. Despite this explanation, Shisan is even more confused, prompting him to ask Lu Chen about the events of last night, which he hadn't explained. To his shock, Lu Chen reveals he was buried alive. He recounts going to meet the boss, thinking it was a normal online friend meeting, only to discover she was the vice president of GGS Asia, He Yi. Lu Chen and He Yi were lovers in the game, but yesterday the boss turned his gaming equipment for 200,000 yuan. She then invited him to join her new studio and expressed her feelings for him. However, Lu Chen rejected all her advances. With his 3-second delay status, he believed he would only be a burden to her. He didn't want her to waste her time on someone like him. Despite his refusal, she insisted on dropping him home. On the way, they encountered an accident. The rival who vied with her for the position of President of Asia saw their defeat as inevitable. Thus, they set a trap, intending to kill them. Outnumbered and facing armed attackers, he ignited the car's fuel tank to save himself, but the explosion was only delayed by a minute. Reacting quickly, he threw the boss onto a passing tractor and stayed behind to confront the attackers. Enraged by their failed plan and their target's escape, the killers directed their fury towards him. He was brutally beaten, left on the brink of death. Perhaps thinking him dead, they dragged him to a chaotic burial mound in the north of the city and buried him alive. Fortunately, heavy rain overnight loosened the soil, allowing him to escape. He regained consciousness as he crawled out of the ground, feeling pain gradually dissipating from his body. Somehow, he found himself standing at his house's door with no visible wounds, only a faint ache in the back of his head. Shisan asked if he had been infected with a giant virus after being buried, suggesting the virus might be constantly repairing his body. Lu Chen then asks Shisan if he thinks he's still alive now. Shisan responds, suggesting that all the mysteries lie within the chaotic burial mound in the north of the city. It appears they need to go there. As Lu Chen attempts to follow him, Shisan instructs him to stay put and rest. He provides him with food to eat and explains that he'll be going out for a while. Lu Chen inquires if Shisan is heading to the chaotic burial mound, but Shisan declines, stating that he needs to forge his death certificate as his father nearly scolded him to death just now. Shisan also mentions that his father instructed him to take his gaming helmet with him, prompting Lu Chen to tell him to take it away. A few moments later, Shisan arrives at the hospital expert conference room and informs his dad of his presence. However, upon entering, he questions why these old guys are there. Lu Chen was diligently assessing his finances when a sudden knock on the door interrupted him. It was Shisan, standing there with several bags in tow. After welcoming him in, Lu Chen couldn't help but inquire about the bags, wondering if Shisan was fleeing from home. Shisan nonchalantly replied that he was moving in. Surprised, Lu Chen pointed out that he only had one bed, but Shisan reassured him, mentioning that the sofa was spacious enough for him to sleep on. Skeptical, Lu Chen pressed Shisan for the truth, questioning if he needed personal care. Shisan brushed off the concern, attributing his move to sheer boredom at home. To reassure Lu Chen about his health, Shisan showed him a report indicating his robust vital signs. Initially incredulous, Lu Chen objected, prompting Shisan to explain that even he had doubted it, until a series of comparative experiments conducted by esteemed professors convinced him otherwise. Curious, Lu Chen asked about these professors and whether his condition had been disclosed to others. Shisan explained that due to the extensive nature of his virus gene sequencing project, his father sought assistance, leading to the involvement of numerous highly qualified medical experts. Eventually, the involvement escalated to the point where eminent medical figures intervened, transforming the area into a military-restricted zone. But after these professors came out, the efficiency was greatly improved. In half a day, the secret of the chaotic burial mound was unearthed. Lu Chen wondered what the secret was, so Shisan explained that beneath the chaotic burial mound lay a group of tombs from the end of the Han dynasty. It might be related to Ye Guan, but the specifics still required further excavation. This felt quite mysterious to Lu Chen, but Shisan informed him that in the corpse fluid leaked from the tomb, they found virus protoplasts with the same genes as the virus Lu Chen had. 1,000-year-old corpse fluid? Lu Chen said in confusion, then inquired about the virus. Shisan then showed him the file where it was indicated that the virus was named after him, Lu Chen's ice corpse virus. Lu Chen found the name intriguing, and then Shisan instructed him to examine the file carefully while he packed his things. Lu Chen wondered why the virus characteristics were only briefly introduced, without any specific content. Shisan explained that those high-ranking officials could only provide a summary analysis report since they discovered it in less than a day. The specific characteristics still required further study. The only confirmed characteristic for now is its super-strong repairability. This virus constantly repairs Lu Chen's cells, strengthening his body, and now his physical fitness is remarkably good. Shisan continued, explaining that while the virus enhanced his physical fitness, it also slowed down his speed, releasing excessive acidic substances during the cell repair process, which burdens other organs and causes a decline in heart rate. Yet more importantly, no one is interested in Lu Chen's body. Shisan explained to him that his father mentioned there was indeed a dispute at the time. Most people wanted to send Lu Chen to the laboratory for 24-hour observation and research. But a few top-level officials thought they needed to respect Lu Chen's personal opinion. Later, they discovered that the virus protoplast was more valuable for research, causing his importance to plummet, relegating him to a mere reference object for the virus protoplast. Lu Chen remarked that it's acceptable as long as he becomes a test subject. He hadn't anticipated this virus aiding him on 3 occasions. Shisan was perplexed by what Lu Chen meant by 3 times. So Lu Chen explained that the cell repair revived him, the virus protoplast prevented him from turning into a test subject, and finally, his brain delay dropped to 0.9 seconds. Shocked, Shisan jumped from his seat, grabbed the helmet, and urged Lu Chen to quickly immerse him in the game to experience it too. Since this technology can repair cells, it should also be able to repair his brain nerves. Shisan couldn't understand why he hadn't thought of this simple logic before. The X-ray system installed by his father and others was also a boon, so he asked Lu Chen to check if it worked. Holding the helmet, Lu Chen inquired about the X-ray system and asked for an explanation. Shisan explained it simply. The helmet can now emit X-ray spectrum with an inhibitory effect on the virus, eliminating the need for daily hospital visits for X-ray inhibition treatment. This news was greeted with relief because it meant Lu Chen wouldn't have to visit the hospital daily. He could now treat himself at home. Apart from the helmet, there was also a bracelet. When Lu Chen asked about its function, Shisan wasted no time and swiftly placed it on Lu Chen's hand. Lu Chen was then informed that it was a life detection bracelet capable of monitoring his vital signs in real time and transmitting the data to the hospital for reference. However, he still needed to undergo a full-body check once a week for detailed data reference. Lu Chen then inquired about the red line on the bracelet, bewildering Shisan as it suddenly began to glow, shocking them both even more. Downstairs at Lu Chen's home, someone was inspecting his bracelet. He glanced at it and inquired whether the red line and electric shock might suddenly reappear. The doctor assured him that it wouldn't happen again, adding that if someone hadn't forgotten the basic debugging principles before wearing it, such an accident wouldn't have occurred at all. The doctor was referring to his son, Shisan, who was crying in the corner. Lu Chen interjected, mentioning that Shisan had also worked hard that day, so it was inevitable to forget one or two things. However, the doctor remained upset that Shisan had forgotten how to use the bracelet, insisting on explaining it in detail. He clarified that the bracelet monitored Lu Chen's vital signs in real time, with a red line indicating a heart problem, triggering automatic discharge and CPR. A blue line signaled a lung issue, prompting the bracelet to inject adrenaline automatically, while a green line indicated a blood problem due to the virus. Because Shisan had failed to debug the parameters before putting it on Lu Chen, the red line had appeared. Sarcastically, Lu Chen glanced at the dejected Shisan and remarked that it was no wonder the bracelet discharged as soon as the red line appeared. The doctor then advised Lu Chen not to panic when the lines appeared, reassuring him that help would arrive within half an hour if he remained in the city. If he intended to leave the city, he needed to inform them in advance for safety reasons. Internally, Lu Chen acknowledged that the limited travel range within the city was the biggest concession they had made. After the doctor departed, they exchanged goodbyes, with the doctor advising him to contact immediately if anything occurred. Finally sighing with relief as his father left, Shisan settled onto the chair, joined by Lu Chen. Lu Chen mentioned that the doctor assisted in debugging the X-ray system, so he intended to test it. Pausing him, Shisan asked if his game ID remained the same, expressing a desire to add him later, but Lu Chen informed him that he had changed it and inquired if Shisan had done the same. They decided to share their new IDs together, and on the count of 3, Lu Chen revealed his in-game name as Broken Halberd Sinking Sand, while Shisan's nickname was Peerless Master. After a moment of pause, Lu Chen sarcastically commented on Shisan's choice, prompting Shisan to question if he was unworthy. Lu Chen, with a mocking expression, urged him to quickly install the game's mainframe, stating he'd be waiting to fly alongside him online. To be honest, both of their in-game names sound terrible. Personally, I would have used Skibbity Toilet Gigachad Riz. Upon entering the room, Lu Chen vowed to transform his best friend into a true peerless master, feeling he had already wasted much time and wondering about his current rank. As the helmet initiated, the X-ray system also activated, eliciting a satisfying sensation. System notifications indicated his reconnection to the game and acquisition of the Jungle Green Blade, which bolstered his attack and strength. Pondering how he reached the lair of the Green Mantis, he surmised that the offline coordinates were likely linked to those of the Green Blade. Eager to test the sword's power, he drew it, catching the attention of a horde of green mantises with its light. Delighting in its sharpness, Lu Chen swiftly dispatched the creatures with critical hits, relishing the sword's effectiveness against the monsters surrounding him. He was shocked when a critical hit dealt over 400 damage, which he deemed worthy of a black stone weapon. As a monster attempted to sneak attack him, Lu Chen deemed it unworthy to be cut by his new weapon, so he punched it instead, sending it flying. Pressed for time, he commanded the monsters to attack him together, trying to act cool, only to be genuinely surprised when they all obeyed. Nonetheless, he was prepared, swiftly slicing through each monster that came his way, and in a matter of moments, the battle concluded. Wiping his sword clean of monster blood, Lu Chen noted that his weapon still looked handsome, but slightly worse for wear. Suddenly, a mysterious voice called his in-game name, causing him to turn swiftly and inquire who was calling him. To his shock, he faced an unknown-level undead judge, a powerful undead from purgatory summoned to the world through a contract. Its strength remained unknown, leaving Lu Chen taken aback, hoping that this new adversary wouldn't seek trouble with him. The judge opened his scroll wide, raised his hand, and swiftly inscribed something on it. Then he tossed it to Lu Chen, who upon opening it discovered it was a bounty. A notification clarified that player Dragon Reign Supreme, the knight from earlier, had issued a bounty on him. Any player who kills him once and causes him to lose a level can receive a reward of 250 gold coins. Lu Chen was enraged by this, as 250 gold coins is a significant sum. One gold coin is equivalent to about 100 yuan, making killing him once worth about 25,000 yuan. In anger, he tore the bounty poster, resenting the knight's attempt to drive him out of the game with money. However, Lu Chen vowed to outmaneuver him and make him quit the game first. Moments later, he received a notification congratulating him for completing the Green Mantis task and reaching level 10, granting him the qualification to change class. The notification instructed him to go to Chaotic Corpse Ridge to obtain the introduction letter and then to enter Iceberg Peak to complete the class change. Lu Chen was overjoyed to receive this news. Suddenly, he received a friend request from Shisan. Recognizing his friend, he accepted it and they began chatting. Shisan appeared worried and inquired about the situation, asking how Lu Chen had ended up with a bounty on his head again. Lu Chen explained that he had killed a wealthy fool. Shisan then asked if he had changed his class, to which Lu Chen replied that he had not yet. Puzzled, Shisan revealed that a group of players who had completed their class change considered Lu Chen a weakling and were prepared to kill him. Concerned, Lu Chen asked if they were coming after him, prompting Shisan to direct him to the public chat channel. After reading the public chat, Lu Chen found it amusing that these individuals believed him to be a weakling. Shisan warned him that the group seemed to be collaborating to pursue him and asked what he planned to do. Lu Chen confidently replied that nobody in the world knew how to evade pursuit better than him, reminding Shisan of how he survived the trials of the previous year's spirit pain. He explains that last year when he came online, people were waiting for him. How did he hold on, you ask? Well, it's simple. He spread false news, pretended to be a corpse, disguised himself as a wild monster, used a small account to infiltrate the enemy camp, and stayed in the boss's lair for half a month. That year, he was forced to become a monster to escape. It was all tears of bitterness. Lu Chen, being a master of escape, took a screenshot of his location and decided to send it to Shisan, asking him to immediately spread this photo out and say that Lu Chen is killing monsters in the Morning Light Forest. Shisan asks him if he wants to lure these people to the Morning Light Forest. Lu Chen agreed and said that false information can make them swarm in. He will take the opportunity to change class. This is just basic operation for the Master of Escape. In order to avoid being discovered on the way, he also needs to use camouflage, which he used masterfully. Meanwhile, at the World Channel, the info of Lu Chen's location has been made public. They were all fooled that Lu Chen is in the Morning Light Forest. Now people are pumped to go and get that sweet bounty. Not knowing that Lu Chen was hiding right next to them, they left. While running, Lu Chen inwardly says that after this wasteland, suddenly the archers alerted them of someone being here. After waiting so long, the person they're supposed to stop is finally here. Lu Chen looked at them and didn't look impressed that only 4 people were sent to kill him. He inwardly says that he will just find the right opportunity and kill them all in one wave as he stood face to face with them.